My name is Heather Duncan and I am the artist with Duncan House Creative, and today we're going to do this tutorial on these beautiful feathers. Alright, let's jump into the tutorial. First I'm going to go over the supplies you're going to need for our work, okay? Okay, for supplies you're going to need a piece of watercolor paper. Mine is a Canson watercolor paper. It's great. I love Canson, especially if you're just playing around. It's a great quality of paper. Some people use it as like artist grade where they sell work on it, but it's a great economic purchase. I'm also going to use this cute, I'm going to dry it off before I lift it up so it doesn't spill, Art Philosophy palette. Isn't she cute? I love it. It's the Complexion palette by Art Philosophy. So in love with all of these colors. I'm serious. I could be one of those QVC people like selling things. They're so yummy. The colors are great. All of the colors go together. It's what I love about them too. So they're perfectly curated. So you're going to need some watercolors. If you don't have that watercolor palette, so to speak, you can use any watercolors. Get out your old Crayola watercolors for this. Really, this can be done with anything that you have at your house. You're going to need some clean water. You're going to need a paper towel and then a watercolor brush. This is a size 4 round watercolor brush, but you can use whatever size you want. I wouldn't use something really large. I would use something a little bit smaller, okay? All right, let's go over our steps for today's tutorial. For our tutorial, first we're going to draw out the feathers with a pencil, okay? And I forgot to mention that in the supplies, so you might need a pencil too. So you're gonna draw out the feathers with a pencil, which I'm gonna show you how to do that. And then we're going to paint the body of our feather, and we're gonna use some wet on wet technique to add some of these details here. Then we're gonna go to the next feather, and as that feather dries, we're gonna paint the other feather. And then we're gonna come back to the feather and add some of these details with a wet on dry technique. Some little spots or stripes, and then we're gonna add the little frills down at the bottom, okay? The very last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get a really light gray and do the spine of our feather. This is a super easy tutorial. I have done this with so many people. It's very easy. I promise it's something that you could replicate with any colors, so don't feel tied to this. I've had people do blue and purple feathers, then pink and orange feathers. I mean, I've seen people do all kinds of feathers in some of the classes I've taught. This is a really popular one that we do. So anyways, don't feel tied to the colors I'm using. You can do whatever colors that you feel drawn to. But I hope you enjoy yourself. Just relax, have some fun, and let's get started. Okay, before we get started, I'm going to show you how to draw a feather with my Sharpie, okay? Before I draw my feathers with a pencil, I'm going to show you how to draw a feather with a Sharpie. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw the spine of your feather, okay? So the spine of your feather is going to be 2 parallel lines. And then after you draw the spine, and I'm drawing mine much larger than I would draw on my smaller watercolor paper, but after you draw the spine of your feather, you're going to make like a V, okay? You're going to make a V. After you draw your V, you're going to kind of come up and loop around and connect your V. So I'm going to start on one side, and I like to kind of make a little rounded edge to your feather, but some feathers are pointed, so whatever you want to do. After you make your V and then your loop, you're going to come in and add some little V's to the edges of your feather. These are going to kind of be the little notches. I would add like 3. You don't want to add more than 3 because then it's just too much. And we always, when we're doing anything with design, we want to stick with an odd number. So I think 3 is a really great number, okay? So this is how you draw a feather. It's really not that hard. You can even draw smaller feathers, the V, and then maybe a little bit bigger little thing, a plume. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know any terminology for feathers, but there's another one. Maybe you want to do a pointed feather. You do your parallel lines, your V, and then you could do a point, you know? So these are some different feathers that you can draw, okay? All right, let's get started on our watercolor feathers. Okay, first I'm going to get my pencil and I'm going to draw my feathers. Now I'm going to put 2 feathers on my paper. If you want to do like 3 little feathers, 4 feathers, I mean, whatever you want to do, okay? You do you. I'm going to do 2 feathers. I'm going to do one kind of right here. And remember, anytime we're using a pencil on watercolor paper, we want to color really, or draw really lightly. We don't want to, and I'm going to shorten this a little bit. We don't want to leave any indents in our paper. Our paper is pretty thick, so we don't want to leave an indent. Okay, so there's my feather. I'm going to draw some little notches, maybe 3, like I said earlier, and I don't like where this is going. I'm going to erase that and kind of bring it more around. Like he's a little bent feather, I don't know. I don't know how accurate that is, but whatever. Okay, then I'm going to do another one. And I can do this upside down because I've done this 1,000 times, but because you're watching, we'll do it like this. I don't even know if you can see this. There we go, and then do some more little notches. Okay, I'm going to start with this one now. Okay, I am going to start by just painting kind of, clean my paper up a little bit. I can get lost in that, sorry. I'm going to start by doing my lighter color, okay? I'm going to start with this one that's really pretty. It's called Namaste. Love it. I'm going to wet my paint and kind of wake it up. Okay, wake that paint up. And then I'm just going to paint inside my feather, but I'm not going to paint that rib. I have to work really carefully not to get any paint into that rib of my feather. You see that? I'm just going to paint the perimeter. Okay, and I'm coming all the way up to my pencil line. Now, here's my notch. I have to make really certain that I don't go inside that notch. I'm going to come around it, and then up and around, and then come up, and then fill this in with water. Okay, and remember, you want your brush to be really wet, and you want to have quite a bit of water on your brush. Okay, quite a bit of water on your brush. I always tell my students it's called watercolor. More water, less color. Okay. Alright, then down around the notch. Same. I'm just going to add some color here. Now, while this is wet, this is still pretty good and wet. I'm going to add some wet on wet color here. So pretty. I'm going to add just a little bit darker yellow there. Okay, and I'm actually going to include that line. Now, while this is still wet, I'm going to come in with this, what is this called? This is called Redwood, and I'm just going to do some dots in my wet color. And whenever I do this, this is called wet on wet, it just spreads. And, I think it's so pretty, and I feel like it looks so much like feathers, you know? And it doesn't have to be uniform. Like, I'm not planning where I'm putting these, and it's just going to continue to spread. Pick up just a little bit more color. Get that in there. And come down my feather just a little bit with it. I might even come, while this is still wet, I might even come and just go along my rib and just add some of that color in. Just to add a little bit of dimension to that. There. Oh, guys, it's going to be so pretty. Okay, now I'm going to come back to my yellow, my Namaste as it's called, and I'm going to fill in the rest of my feather. And do you see how kind of organic these look and natural? Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. It's beautiful. I love feathers. I had a grandmother, she's since passed, but she was obsessed with birds. She had every kind of bird, like you can imagine, weird, crazy birds. She had pet emus. Yes, I said emus. She had pet peacocks. She had pet guineas. She had pet, this reminds me kind of a guinea feather with all the dots. She had so many different birds. Ducks, geese, Muscovy ducks. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but they're interesting. Okay, now we're going to come in. I'm trying to decide. I'm going to use this paint here called Cavern. I actually don't think I've used this. We're going to do essentially the same thing. We're just going to come in here, and I'm picking up this brown, and I'm going to use the brown, and I'm going to do the wet on dry, where I'm just taking wet paint and I'm painting it onto dry paper. And I'm just gonna kind of come in here. I don't know if I like that too much. Might be a little too orangey for me. I'm picking up some of that redwood and adding to it. Okay. I'm coming up here, filling this in around. Making sure those cutouts there I'm not getting. And I'm going to pull that color up. Now, right now I'm just using water. I'm actually not even using my paint. I'm just using the water. I'm actually getting some paint from the side and pulling that water down. Gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay. Pulling that water down, that paint down. And I'm going to paint this whole thing. Now, I don't mind that you can kind of see the different shades of brown, like right here. I kind of like that. That's totally okay with me. Okay. I'm going to pull that in, pull that up. Now I'm going to paint some lines, and I'm going to do that with black. So I'm going to load my brush pretty good with black. Make sure it's pretty wet. And then I'm just going to kind of drag some lines, and I might even come, like, go up and down. So they're not just like straight through this. And they're going to bleed quite a bit. And I am okay with that. Uh-oh. Let me come over here and kind of clean that up. There. Maybe get some more. I like that so much I'm going to do it again. And maybe just a little bit more. And I'm just kind of going, I'm bouncing up and down on those. And I might just do like 2 on the side there. Ah! That looks so good. I love it. So I flipped my paper over, and now I'm going to do this first feather with a wet on dry technique. Okay, so I'm going to take my wet paint and I'm going to put it on my dry feather. That's why it's called wet on dry. Okay, and I'm actually not going to add a lot because I love the spots on this, and I'm just going to pick up maybe some of this dark brown, which is called Bear, and I might just drag just a couple of diagonal lines through my feather. 5? Yes, 5. 5 lines. And then I'm going to use the same color that I used this redwood with these spots, and I'm going to do some little frills at the bottom of my feather, okay? So I'm going to get a wet brush, pick up some paint, make sure it's nice, and I like the consistency of it here. And I'm just going to work my way up the feather. Actually, I kind of start here and just pull some little pieces down, and I kind of work my way up. Okay, like that. Like there's some little frillies. I don't know the technical term for those, but it's like the fine little points at the bottom of the base of the feather. They're not like the typical feathers. Excuse me. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. Okay, then I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to add some wet on wet, and I think I'm going to add some black, because I have these black dots, and I think I might add some little, like, small, very pointed dots right here. You guys, they look so good. I love them. I might even bring some over here because I love them so much. There we go. And feel free to look up feathers on YouTube, that's where we are right now. Like Google or whatever, look up some feathers, see what kinds of feathers there are out there. Okay, now I'm going to add my little frills to this one. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, okay, and I'm just kind of bringing these little, I won't call them eyelashes, I don't actually know what to call them, but little frills to the bottom of the feather. And I have taught these feathers quite a bit, and I have had women, like really beautiful, like elaborate women, when they do their frills, they'll do them really big and just over the top, which are really pretty too. So, okay, now that I've done my wet on dry, I'm gonna come in with my gray. I'm gonna make a really light gray. I'm talking like the lightest gray, like one step up from water. Okay, that just means a dab of black and a lot of white, or a lot of water. Okay, and then I'm gonna just pull a line of gray up through this midline, just to give it a shadow. Okay, and I have to be really careful down here. You might want to wait till that's completely dry. I've done this so much I can do it, but okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Line of gray. And it's okay if some white shows. Oh, dang. I was bragging. Just suck some of that up there. There we go. And then pull some down here. There. Can I get it right there? That's okay. Doesn't look too bad. Alright. My feathers are done. They're all done. Now, all I have to do is I'm going to let this dry a bit, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to erase those pieces where my gaps were. Okay. Without getting any eraser in my paint. Just erase that. Perfect. Take this off, and I will show you my finished results. Still a little wet. My wet on dry there, it's still a little wet, but isn't it gorgeous? I love it. I just love it. I love it. I love it. Feathers are also such a symbol of hope. like a lot of people feel like feathers are very special to them. There's several Bible verses about wings and feathers and different things, and so maybe this is symbolic to you. Maybe it's symbolic to someone you know. It'd be a great gift to give someone. But I hope you enjoyed our time tonight. Here's my other feathers so you can see. Here. You can see them side by side. Every time you do it, it's going to be a little bit different, okay? So never, two paintings are never identical. But anyways, all right. Thank you guys for joining me today. I enjoy this time with you. I hope that it was relaxing to you. I hope just the rhythm of painting and seeing the paint on the paper just really caused you to have a moment to yourself and a moment where you could kind of refuel and refresh and get back to something that's fun and creative. All right? Okay, that's it. Remember, stay creative. Creativity is contagious too, so make sure that you're urging others to be creative in your own sphere of influence, okay? We will see you next time.